we ended up, we had nowhere to go. So she took me to the park, tore some trees down, and we had some shelter, and we stayed in the park for a few nights and nearly died. She went, and I left school at 15 with no qualifications, and I went round the town and I asked everyone if I could clean their floors. I got a job, a full-time job, but it still wasn't enough to pay my rent, so I used to still live in the shops as well as do the cleaning. And then when I was 21, I got a job offered to me in direct sales, but it was commission only. They couldn't communicate very well. And the boss was going to fire me. And he said, listen, if you don't sell something in the next couple of days, Marco, you're going to be fired. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to show them the product? They can't even see it. Because I bought company stock and I was basically played by the company. So I bought the stock for $2. It came down to 10 cents. So basically I lost everything that I made in that 2 years.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Bolgar Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast, where today we're going to dive deep into the world of international real estate investing, as today we have a worldwide known face whose name I'm still not going to mention. However, he has proven himself not only to be an ingenious real estate investor, but also a person who is not afraid at all to share the knowledge that he has definitely acquired and mastered in terms of real estate investing. And he has done this through his book, that I'm not going to call the name of either, which has helped myself and my mentor, who I believe most of you are aware of, Christo Damjanov, the CEO of Bolgar Capital. So guys, I don't want to take any more of the time for the introduction. I'm going to present to you the man himself, the one and only Marco Robinson. Marco, it's so nice to meet you out here, man. How are you doing today?
How you doing? Nice to see you, buddy.
It's so nice to see you as well. We are thrilled to have you on the podcast. I really hope that I've given a proper introduction to yourself, because I really respect the work that you're doing and, of course, the book that you have written, which has tremendously helped our company grow to the levels we enjoy nowadays. Now, Marco, before we continue to getting the knowledge from you about real estate investing, about sales, about your general journey overall in your success, I would like to know more about your childhood days, about your teenage years, and all of the challenges that I definitely believe you have faced, because at your level of success, there is absolutely no person that has never faced challenges. So please tell me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone has a story, right? And it's through our stories that we learn and become really who we, I guess, choose to be. Some people don't do it. Some people choose to stay the victim. Some people choose to basically rise up and be anti-fragile. Now, when I was 2 years old, my mum left my dad. He was a gambling addict. And my first memories were of cigars and smelly feet and newspapers all over the floor, because he was studying form for horse racing betting, right? Now, she left him because he spent all the money, and he spent her money. So she had no choice. She was 23, I was 2. And she decided to go and live with her mum in the north of England, which is in January. It was very cold. And on the doorstep with me in her arms, it was snowing. And her stepdad said to her mum, it's either me or them. They stay or I go, right? So her mum said, you can't stay here. So we ended up, we had nowhere to go. So she took me to the park, tore some trees down, and we had some shelter, and we stayed in the park for a few nights and nearly died. Okay. And we were on and off homeless for many years. Like, we didn't have a permanent place to stay. She was very transient in work. I was going to lots of different schools. What I understood was, when she told me only recently, actually, when she was 70, is that her stepfather used to sexually abuse her since she was 4 years old. So it's like the old days of the patriarch, because whatever he said, he was protected because he was bringing the money in, so no one could touch him. And one day when she was 12 years old, he put his hand on her breast and said, I didn't marry your mum for your mum, I married your mum to get to you. So she had a very terrifying childhood. And she protected me all the way through that. And she met someone else, and he seemed to be okay, but he turned violent, domestically abused her. And then when I was 15, she met the man of her dreams. She fell in love, and she's still with him today after 40 years. And at that point, when I was 15, I said to her, be happy, go and be happy. Okay, do what you need to do. And she went, and I left school at 15 with no qualifications. And I went round the town and I asked everyone if I could clean their floors for £1 an hour.
That's the hustler spirit.
Yeah, now some people said yes.
Mm-hmm.
Some people said no, but the people that said yes ended up cleaning floors.
Uh-huh.
I used to get their trust and get the keys, and I used to sleep in the shop after work, but then no one knew I was there. So I used to move around a lot, right? I was a hidden homeless.
Sorry, but at what age is that?
That was 15 to 19.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was a long time. And then I got a job, a full-time job, but it still wasn't enough to pay my rent. So I used to still live in the shops as well as do the cleaning. And then when I was 21, I got a job offered to me in direct sales, but it was commission only. But I was so fed up of the town that I lived in, it was a way to escape, right? So I went to Manchester to get this job, and it was sales, and I was the worst salesperson in the company because I had no confidence. I didn't know how to talk to people. I couldn't communicate very well. And the boss was going to fire me. And he said, listen, if you don't sell something in the next couple of days, Marco, you're going to be fired. And my question when I was going through that process of being really bad at sales was, why am I such a loser? And the answer was because it kept going in a loop, right? And when the boss told me that I'm going to be fired, I changed my question to, how can I be successful? So that triggered me, that pain of not wanting to go back to my hometown triggered me to basically do something different. And when I went to the office the day after, the top salesperson came up to me. He's never done that before. And he said, listen, Marco, I used to be like you. I used to be homeless. I said, no way. He said, yeah, I used to be homeless, and I learned how to be the top salesperson. And I did it by learning, by believing in myself, and by reading a book. And I said, I'm going to give you my book that I read. I want you to go home and read it, and don't stop reading until you get the lesson. Mm-hmm. So I went home, nothing to lose. I read the book 8 times in one night. It's the first book I ever read.
What was the book?
It was called Bring Out the Magic in Your Mind. Okay. Any self-development book would have been good for me then, but that was a good book, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when I in the morning, I was so like feeling completely different. And I ran to the office and I had this new belief system. I wasn't attached to the result anymore. And they brought the first prospects in to see me that were both blind. He was blind, she was blind. I was selling timeshare for £10,000, not cheap, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my God, how am I going to show them the product? They can't even see it, right?
And that was your last chance to show yourself as a good
chance. That was my last chance. And so I said to that couple, you're going to sit there for 5 hours. You're going to love what I'm showing you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to spend £10,000 at the end of it. And they said, no, we're not. We want to go now. We want to go now. So 5 hours, I was like, yeah, selling the shit out of it, right? And at the end of it, the blind guy, he said, just wait there, Marco. Went to put his hand in his pocket, brought his wallet out, got his gold credit card and said, Marco, you were right. Put £10,000 on this credit card. We want this very badly. And I was like, oh my God, right? Because it was like the first success of my life, right? And we were laughing and joking. And I said to them, why did you buy from me? And they said, this is your first sale. I said, yeah, it's my first sale. I said, what, really? They couldn't believe it. And they said the reason they bought from me was because I transferred my belief of what I believed in to them. And that was the biggest lesson of my life completely. Now, since then, that happened, I became the top salesperson and became the youngest sales manager in the company at 23. And at 27, I got headhunted from all companies around the world that wanted me to work for them and get their sales up, right? So there was a company in Malaysia, a public company, that was doing quite well in property. Mm-hmm. And they offered me a crazy deal. The money was ridiculous. So I took my family over there, sold everything. And that was in 1997.
Mm-hmm. At what age are you at this point?
I was 27.
Wow. Oh, okay.
And I went over there, and after 3 months, the company couldn't pay me because they had the Asian economic crisis, caused by George Soros. So all devalued the currency and they couldn't pay me. So again, I was at a decision point of what to do. But I just had a feeling it was just a great opportunity. So what I did is I innovated the product of timeshare from a week, for buying 1 week, into buying a points program where people could buy one day, like it was really affordable, you know, like a couple of grand. And I implemented this innovation. I hired 3,000 people and we generated $1 billion in sales over 2 years doing that. It broke the world record in sales.
2 years later, $1 billion in sales.
Yeah, so innovated the product, completely changed the way we did it, and did over $1 billion in sales, broke the world record in sales.
Marco, now that is a very steep success curve.
Yeah, that was a very steep success curve, and I put literally everything into doing this. I mean, you know, 7 days a week, 18 hours a day. And in the year 2000, I was doing a sales meeting, and I had a heart attack and collapsed in the meeting.
Really? You've got a heart attack?
I had a heart attack, collapsed in the meeting, right? Taken to hospital, and they said, you've had a mild heart attack. It's a warning. You're stressing out. You're working too hard. You've got to slow the fuck down, right? And when I was in hospital, I found out my wife was having an affair with my best friend.
Wow.
Which was a bigger pain than the heart attack, right?
The challenges don't stop. They just
challenges don't stop. And I'd known them both for 10 years. It was like the worst betrayal you can imagine, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, I had $2 million in the stock market. And I did some trades, not knowing what I was doing, because I bought company stock and I was basically played by the company. So I bought the stock for $2. It came down to 10 cents. So basically, I lost everything that I made in that 2 years, right? So that was in 2001. And then I decided I didn't want to work for anybody ever again. I wanted to work on my own goals instead of other people's, right? So it was a great lesson that I learned. And then I became an entrepreneur. So I used to be consulting for companies. I did motivational events like Tony Robbins. The results were up and down. They weren't always consistent. And in 2008, in the subprime crisis, I left my wife, which was a fantastic day, one of the best days of my life. And my question was, how can I leave my wife? And the universe said to me, write a book. So I sat down and I wrote a book called Close the Deal and Suddenly Grow Rich, which took me 6 months to write it. And it became a #1 best-selling book in 2009.
Wait, but how was that connected to you leaving your wife?
That's what the universe told me to do. So once I'd finished the book, I left my wife. Funny thing, right?
You just felt it internally.
Yeah, I got the message to do this. It was an intuitive thing to do, right? So I wrote the book, became #1 bestseller. But as you know, book sales alone don't make a lot of money, right? So my next question was, how can I make $1 million this year from that book? So I looked at all my experience in hotels and property and timeshare memberships, and I said, right, I'm going to create a new product called a vacation incentive, where I'm going to get some cheap hotel rooms, package them into a voucher, and sell them to companies where they can use them to promote or sell, like buy a car, get a free holiday, buy a house, get a free holiday, buy a phone, get a free holiday. But they would only pay me like $50 for the holiday, right? So I reached out to all the hotels I knew, and I said to them, can you give me some free rooms? Because if you give me some free rooms, because the hotels then were not doing very well. It was like COVID in 2008, right?
Yeah.
I said, I will send people to eat lunch or dinner at your hotel. And they some of them agreed. So I got the hotel rooms for free, right? And I started selling this vacation voucher. And the first month I made $10,000. Second month I made $100,000. The next month I made $500,000. And after that, I made $12 million in that year with that product.
You're a creative genius. I have to give you that.
Well, I mean, I just innovate. There's always something you could do in adversity. And that adversity helps you be creative, doesn't it? So I had all this money and I thought, what do I do? So I thought, okay, I'll buy some real estate. So I went to America in 2009. And as you know, that was after subprime crisis. And I was buying real estate for like 20 grand for a house in America that had dropped because of the crisis, right?
But what made you buy real estate? Was it just
Well, I
because
just
of the...
researched it. I researched where to put the money
Mhm.
rather than getting taxed a fortune. So
Uh-huh.
I started buying this real estate in America, but it was so far away from me. But I enjoyed it, but I needed to build a team. So I needed to build a team to maintain them, to manage them, to find them.
Okay.
And I made it into a business where I was able to take people on tours to America and sell them properties and educate them. And that became another business. And from that business, I wrote the second book, The Financial Freedom Guarantee. So that became my second book because I was doing seminars about the subprime crisis, what I'd learned, and people loved it.
Yeah.
And
I'm one of these people.
well, there you go. And then the book sold, and that's that story. And after I wrote that book, it became, there was a lot of press online about it, and Channel 4 TV contacted me in the UK, and they said, "Listen, Marco, we've seen your book, we've seen your success, we've seen that you were homeless. Would you be interested in giving a house away on your own TV show?" And I said, "Why?" They said, "Because we want to make a TV show to raise awareness of the social housing issue, because lots of people are homeless right now. They can't afford a house." So I said I would love to do that. So we made a TV show in 2017 called Get a House for Free. I gave 3 houses away for free, paid the mortgage off. I started my own charity called Freedom X and helped thousands more people get off the street. And by that time, I was like, I didn't want to really have succeeded in what I wanted to do. So my next venture was to make I wanted to make a feature film. Right. So I sat down and said, right, I want to make a feature film. How do I do it? Didn't know how to do it. So I reached out to people that I knew. And some people said, yeah, we can do that. Let's work on a film together. So I started writing a script with somebody. I invested about 25 grand in this person to help me do it. And when I sent the money to them, they disappeared. I lost up 25 grand.
Well, that wasn't something so bad to you, but still,
But still, it's a lot of money, right?
Yeah, sure. It's a lot of money.
So that was a bit of a lesson to me. But on that project, I met an actor called Victor, who was best friends with a guy called Adrian Ball, who was the director of Legacy of Lies. So he said, listen, Adrian wants to make a film. He's a genius filmmaker. Come and meet him. So I went to Holland to meet Adrian. And we got on really well, and we started a feature film project. And that feature film project took 7 years to make, to raise $5 million, and it debuted at number 2 on Netflix in 2021 in the USA.
What's the movie about?
It's called Legacy of Lies. It's a spy thriller.
And you're an actor in that movie?
Yeah, I produced it and acted in it. And now I make feature films. So I've got 35 films in distribution, I've got 118 development, and I coach people how to make feature films, as well as my online coaching business. Now, it wasn't all good news, by the way, because in 2018, when I bought I bought a property with 50 apartments in it in Manchester. I didn't buy it. My cousin bought it. I was in business with them, and I didn't want to buy it. They bought it behind my back. Right. And this property had a lot of problems with it. Basically, the fire cladding on the side of the building was very bad. It was not compliant. So the fire brigade condemned the building. We couldn't put anyone in there. And I had to sue my cousin, and I had to sue 8 people, the building regulators, the bank, all kinds of people. It cost me pretty much all of my fortune. It cost me about £20 million to get that over the line, because the developer went bankrupt. It cost me tons in legal fees. I lost millions in sales, right? And that litigation took till last year to finish, right? Now, when I was going through that litigation, it got so bad that the bank tried to repossess my mum's house, right?
Wow.
And at that point, I basically bought some pills and swallowed the pills to try and kill myself.
Really?
Yeah, at that point.
I don't believe this, man. I mean, you've gone through so much.
I know. I lost everything I worked for. Everything I worked for, right?
Just couldn't take it anymore.
It was just a moment. It just cracked me, you know. But as soon as I swallowed, my mum walked in, and said, listen, we can beat these bastards.
Mm-hmm.
And her strength made me rise up and fight the bank. So I made a campaign against the bank online. I exposed them, and they settled with me, and I won the case.
You beat the bank.
I won the case with the bank. And after COVID, I wasn't doing anything during the pandemic. But in January 21, I started an online coaching business. I coach people how to start their own business, etc., how to get a business online. And I've done 2 million since then, just online, on my own, pretty much. So I basically bounced back from the jaws of death, as they say. So that's my story. That is my story.
Wow. Now, Marco, there is so much to talk about after you telling your story. First off, you telling your story is just so interesting. And on top of it all, I don't like to interrupt people, especially people as interesting as you. Now, the main point of the podcast is, of course, real estate investing. We are going to focus on that. However, before we go into this, I have a few more questions for you. Now, going back to the part where you decided to give away houses. Now, what makes a person want to give away houses? I mean, that's a pretty big investment that you do. A house is not just $5-10; it's £100,000 at least.
Yeah, well, I thought I didn't think about it when they asked me, because I was homeless. I wanted to make a statement of the so many rich people that could actually help stop homelessness, because we can stop homelessness in a heartbeat. We don't have to send billions to Ukraine. We don't have to send billions to energy and all this bullshit, you know. We've got billions of people, our own people, homeless on the street. And that could be solved pretty much overnight. But as you know, a lot of money gets laundered around the world by governments, and the homeless poverty gets worse, and there's more people affected by it. And the greatest problem with the homelessness is not the home, it's actually the education part. People they don't get the education necessary to be able to get themselves out of poverty, right? So that's why I wanted to do that.
So it was just something that you just felt. It's not.
Yes, I just wanted to do it, make a statement, and show other people that people are kind, and we can help each other, kind of thing.
Marco, I hope that more people hear this message, because I know of many millionaires. Of course, our company knows of many millionaires, but they just keep their money. They buy jets, they buy cars, they buy some crazy houses. And that's fine, they can do it. It's fine. But before you do it, give something back to the community, give something back to other people. And you've definitely done that. And you've done that massively. You've given away houses. For God's sake. That's amazing.
I'm the only one that's ever done it, mate.
Actually, I haven't heard of anyone give away houses. Perhaps this guy, Mr. Beast, I believe you might have heard of him.
I think Mr. Beast, but I was like the first guy to even think about doing that. I mean, Mr. Beast, Grant Cardone, Undercover Billionaire, that wasn't even going when I was around doing this, So, and I did it for a homeless family, not someone that was working with them or anything like that. So, yeah, Mr. Beast is a fantastic guy. Grant Cardone is these guys are fantastic. But it needs more people like us. If we came together, we'd solve the problem,
I'm absolutely agreeing with you on this point, and congrats to what you're doing in terms of that. And congrats to everything you've done, actually. I mean, there is so much that you just told me. I didn't know most of the things you just told me, and I'm very happy that I now know them. However, let's go back to the sales part. Now, your first sales interaction was when you started mopping floors. Should we call it that? You just started going door to door and started selling.
Yeah.
And you just wanted £1 for that.
Yeah, £1 an hour.
How was that economically okay with you? I mean,
well, because it was money. I never had any money. So at that time, that was like in 1985, people were working for £2 an hour, like $3 an hour. That was the minimum wage, right? So I went in there and said, right, and there was no law on minimum wages then. So I went in there thinking, okay, I'm new, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I'll charge half, right? That was my strategy, because I didn't have any other strategy. And I won because I dropped the price. No one else could match it, you see. Yeah. And then I became really good at cleaning. When I went in there at first, I was really bad. I got fired from a couple of jobs, and then I learned to get really good at cleaning and took pride in that work. You get what I mean?
Yeah. So you just invested some passion, and
yes,
this way
exactly.
it just worked better.
Yeah, work ethic. I learned about work ethic.
Yeah, you absolutely seem like a guy who knows what work ethic is. So congrats
Yeah.
on that, Marco. However, what made you quit this job? I mean, $1 an hour, it's
Well,
not the best.
I was not, obviously, cleaning floors is not something I just that was right for me at the time, but I knew I could do better than that. And the reason I did it for so long is to build my own confidence. And I was also reading a lot. I was applying for other jobs. I got part-time jobs. So in that time, I was busy, but it was like my apprenticeship of my work ethic, you know. But it wasn't. It was a skill set, but it wasn't a communication skill set. And I knew I needed to get that to that next level. And that's when I got into sales. I knew I'd be bad, but I knew I had to get into sales because I'd studied that you could make unlimited amount of money in sales, and that's what I wanted to do. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, so you actually, while doing the job with the cleaning of homes, in the meanwhile, you read some books. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So you were studying, you were learning, and therefore you decided that sales was the thing for you, a commission-based job.
Yes.
Okay, and so this commission-based job sucked at the beginning. Is that correct? Did I get this correctly?
Well, it didn't. It sucked because I wasn't getting the results. It was frustrating, right? Because I couldn't use the same skill set. I was doing cleaning floors. I had the work ethic. I'd work, right? But I wasn't learning. I wasn't mastering this communication skills because I was so effectively bad at communication. Because I was living alone for so many years, you know. I didn't talk to anybody. So that lesson in that sales job luckily paid off because I eventually found a mentor. I'd never had a mentor before. My mentor was the top salesperson. So that person became my mentor. As soon as I met that person and they took an interest in me, that fucking changed literally my life, you know?
What would you say made this guy contact you? Because, you know, you were, not to offend you, but you were at the bottom of this sales company, right?
He did it because he saw the effort that he said, listen, the reason I'm approaching is because I see all the effort that you're putting in, but you're not getting a result. You're not giving up. That's what he loved about me.
I love it. Okay,
Right?
Marco, I'm asking you this question because many people think that no one wants to help them, no one cares about them, and that's right, no one cares about us. However, when you put so much work in, someone is going to help you out. If it's not a person, it's going to be God, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you just got to put the work in, and you've created that work ethic that you've really shown, and the top salesman just couldn't help but contact you and help you out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he gave you that book that you read in one night. Did I get
Yeah.
this correctly?
I read it 8 times in one night.
8 times in one night.
Yeah. I mean, I read it. That was the first book I ever read.
How many
You know?
pages is that?
I think it was 200 pages.
Marco, you read 1,600 pages in one
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. I read it in like 9 hours.
Did you sleep?
I speed read it.
And did you sleep at all?
Didn't sleep.
And you had a sale the next day,
I had a sale the next day.
the first sale of your life.
First sale of my life.
First off, super inspiring and definitely very impressive. Okay, Marco, so except for this moment, because we all know sales is not an easy job. It's very hard. You have to learn a lot and you have to get some experience. What would you say for the people that would like to get into a commission-based job? What would you say is a point of your career where your skills really shine? Tell us a story so that people can hear and get something from it.
Well, I actually wrote a book, my first book, all about this. My first book was about how to get a good commission job, how to find the right company, how to find the right people to work with, because you can put so much effort into a company, and you know there are lots of scams these days, right? So part of the deal for you, your responsibility is to make sure that you do your research to find out if it's a good company. You know, who owns it? What's their background? What's their story? How long have they been around? What do they do? What's the product? Is it niche? Is it got a USP? Is it going to be a long-term product? Are they innovating? Do they have a research team? Part of the deal is you've got to make sure that when you're putting your time in something, it's going to pay you off. So you've got to work with the right people. That's a huge deal. Yeah.
So your advice to people who want to get a commission-based job, get into sales, is to read the book, right?
Well, definitely read my first book. That will help you so much because it's how to sell commission-only products. But also in that book, it tells you how to research companies, what to look for, etc. But generally speaking, you know, you have to check out the companies that you're going to put time into.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know.
Okay, Marco. So overall, I haven't read the book. So it's called Close the Deal and Suddenly Grow Rich.
Yeah,
right?
it's on Amazon.
I'm definitely going to read this book. However, before I do, and before our viewers and listeners do as well, could you tell us perhaps a story from that book where you think your sales skills really shined? Have you
Yeah.
written
So
about it?
what I learned when I was before I wrote that book, what I learned about sales was it's about knowing when to close the deal. It's knowing when to ask the right questions. So I became so good at sales that I would know the timing of what questions to ask. I would find out people's dominant buying motives. Why would they want to buy a holiday, right? So for example, in those days, people used to smoke indoors, right? So there was a family with 3 kids around the table, and the salesperson couldn't close them for like an hour, 2 hours, just not getting anywhere. So I went on the table and noticed that he was smoking, right? And I just asked him one question. I said, listen, do you want lung cancer or do you want luxury holidays for the rest of your life? One question. And there was a pin. You couldn't hear a pin drop. And he went, and his wife looked at him, his kid looked at him with the guilty look.
Yeah.
And he burst into tears. He put his cigarette out and said, Marco, you're right, we'll buy it. Right? So that's
question.
how powerful it is.
Yeah, it sure is. Okay, so do your research, definitely analyze the situation, see the needs, and therefore just ask the right questions, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to build rapport with the people that you want to sell to. You've got to find out about them. Sales is all about them. Sales is what's in it for them, right? So you've got to ask a question about their favorite subject. Their favorite subject is always themselves. It's not you, it's them, right? And that's the key to it. Yeah.
Thing that nowadays is famous, it's well known. However, back in the days, I'm sure that no one has said it in these books, or perhaps very few books have mentioned the thing that you're just saying. Now I know
most books say go in for the kill, get what they want, get the money. It's
Yeah.
not about, they don't take time getting to know them. You know, a lot of people haven't read a Dale Carnegie's work, so How to Win Friends and Influence People. That's an amazing book. I learned so much from that. You know,
Awesome,
people don't do it anymore. They're not kind anymore. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they definitely perhaps weren't back in the day, because nowadays, if you want to start getting into sales, you can just look up some things. You'll definitely see, after all, one of the things that people are going to see is you, right? And all the things you're saying are read How to Win Friends and Influence People, be kind, get to know the needs of the person. However, back in the days, these things weren't so popular. How did you reach them? Just through experience?
Yeah, I mean, well, my mentor really said, listen, these are the books I read. Apart from that book he gave me a list of books that I should read, you see.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the mentor was the best asset that I have for accelerating my journey. The books were second, the mentor was first.
Would you say everyone needs a mentor in their life?
Absolutely. If you want to grow, if you want to win, if you want to do better, if you want to get what you want, if you want to set big goals, you have to find someone that's achieved that already and work with them, or find out how they did it. You've got to find out the blueprint, you know?
Okay, I understand. And Marco, you yourself, you said that you're coaching people, right? For e-commerce, for how to create an online business.
Yeah.
Sales.
How to start an online coaching business, e-commerce, social media agency, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay, so if anyone from this podcast is interested and wants to know more about you, and actually you might become his mentor or her mentor, how can they find out about you?
Well, they can follow my Instagram, which is Marco Robinson now.
Okay.
Or they can email me, my team, if you want to do that.
At what email?
Marco@marcorobinson.com.
Okay, we're going to leave this down in the description of the video for sure, and the podcast, of course.
Basically, you've got to find people that have got the results. You know, my reputation is the most important thing to me. So I only work with people that have the hunger to get the results, and I lead them to water, but they've got to drink. And when you go online and look at all the testimonials, you'll see that every client I work with gets the results they want. You know, that's what I'm about. I want people to be successful. That's what it's about. Then we can help more people, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And actually fund the goal of giving out houses, right?
Yeah,
I mean, if people are not financially good, how can they help anyone else? They firstly have to help themselves, after all.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Marco, now we're going to dive deep into the part that we love at Bolgar Capital, real estate investing.
Nice.
My question to you was, what ultimately got you into real estate investing? And your answer was that you just researched it online when you actually piled up some money, right?
Yeah, I mean, I got into that really. I mean, I made some huge mistakes. I mean, when I bought my first house in when did I, 1993. I bought my house for £50,000, my first house. And when I left to Malaysia in '97, it was still worth the same money. But a year later, it was worth £200,000. And I was like, oh no, what have I just lost, So that was my first mistake, right? And I was like, ooh, real estate, maybe not that good. And only when I had some cash in 2008, I said, right, I need to figure this out. So I went to lots of seminars and events and figured it out. And what I really loved studying was the economic cycles of what makes property go up and what makes it go down. That's what really fascinated me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I put all my energy into learning the research of how to do that. And now I've learned it and put it into that book. And that's helped so many people, including myself.
Including myself as well.
Buy at the right time. So again, it's knowing when to buy, knowing when to close the deal, knowing when to buy the deal, right? So yeah, I mean, that's what I did.
Okay, Marco, so these seminars that you went to, could you tell us a little bit about who the person that led them was? Have you ever met like Robert Kiyosaki, or what was the mentor that you were?
I studied the main guy's works, but I didn't find any particular guy that went into economic cycles as far that I wanted to go. So I did my own research. I looked at government records, I looked at the price indexes, I looked at the areas, I looked at the crime rates, I looked at the population growth, I looked at companies opening and closing, I looked at the tax rates.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, that's how deep I went. And when I went deeper, the deeper it got. And I just got a load of information. And when that subprime crisis came, I predicted that crisis in 2007, 6 and 7. And I started telling people, I said, listen, it's going to crash. And I told them why. And I've studied and found out the true story of why it crashed, which is in the book, of the subprime CDOs and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To people basically having no limit. Banks having no limits, all taken off and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, selling package mortgages, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I found that really fascinating. And I found that actually that is repeated every 18 years. And now we're coming to a stage where we've just had COVID, right? Ukraine war.
Yeah.
And now they put the mortgage rates up and now the prices of property are now going down. Oh, surprise, surprise. It's 14, 15 years. Yeah. And now the next 3 years is recession. Yeah. Time to buy property again.
So it's all a blueprint, right?
It's all planned. I mean, come on. Why is it every 18 years? Why? There has to be a disaster to trigger the property price. So what happens is the elite will always find a way, right? And I'm not making any conspiracy theories here.
Yeah. Of course, the matrix. We can call it the matrix because I actually believe in that as well.
They'll always find a way to make opportunities for them.
Yeah, sure.
So, I mean, look, in COVID, the rich made more money than any other time in history.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah, so that is pre-planned. It has to be, It
is. And we just got to ride the wave with them.
Yeah. So you either complain about it or you learn what they do and get on the ladder. That's what you have to do.
And actually, your book was the first book where I firstly met this kind of theory that every 15 to 18 years in the book, we have a crisis. And during that crisis, you can buy real estate like apples. And afterwards, it just appreciates.
Yeah.
The rents just go up.
Yeah.
And the cash flow just keeps coming in. And that's what really interested us when we started investing in real estate as well. Actually, my mentor, Christo Damjanov, because I have a mentor myself, and his company, because he's the CEO of the company, he was interested in that. I was afterwards, after he shared this information with me. Your book was the book that your mentor gave you. To me, it was the same, because it really opened my eyes for real estate investing. I never thought that real estate is so powerful. But after that book, after seeing what leverage is, after seeing what economic cycles are, I was fascinated. So your book has really changed us for us. You know,
Awesome.
it's
Awesome.
absolutely a great masterpiece. And Marco, actually, you said that you bought your first property. What was that property? Was it a multifamily? Was it a single family? Was it an HMO?
Well, in 2008, is that what you mean?
No,
In
no.
2008, I was buying single family houses in America.
Single family in America.
Single family houses, very cheap, $20,000 to $30,000.
Okay. So in America, did you live in the UK?
No, I lived in Malaysia.
So you actually combined real estate investing with long distance real estate investing.
Yes, because I found people in America that I wanted. That was a process. Because I had to find people that could find me the properties but manage them. So that was and I used my research to find those people. Right.
So you actually decided that it's better to work with a team rather than work yourself and create.
Yeah, I didn't want to go over there and fight and look for properties all day. Just that was too much of a learning curve for me. I wanted to find people that knew what they were doing, and that was a far better deal because I was able to find multiple properties for many investors and made them money at the same time.
So you didn't go through the process of going through a hobby, because most real estate investors actually start with this as a hobby.
It was a hobby initially because I had quite a bit of money. So I thought, okay, what do we do with it? And then people started asking me, Marco, how are you buying those properties? Well, what tell us your secrets? And then I started doing seminars because people asked me to. There was a demand for it, you know.
Okay, but it was just single family, nothing else.
Yeah, it was all single family houses. Yeah, because I wanted to buy a house that was on land. I didn't want to buy a lease because the capital appreciation was a lot lower on an apartment. On a house with own the land, appreciation went up way more.
Okay, Marco. So after reading the book, The Financial Freedom Guarantee, which is an amazing book about real estate investing, we have recommended it 1,000 times on our podcasts. I'm going to recommend it right now as well. And it's going to pop up somewhere on the screen, of course. You can buy this book. It's absolutely amazing. On the back of it, after I read it, it said that Marco and his investment fund have bought, in just the last 8 months, I think it was, they have bought over 95 properties.
Yeah.
Now that really fascinated me when I read it, because it's just 6 to 8 months. I'm not sure what the exact period was, and it's 95 properties made. How did you do that? Was that the single family homes that we're speaking of?
No, that was not single family. That was apartment blocks.
Okay, so you afterwards started investing in multifamily.
Yeah. Once I'd analyzed my risk, then I knew what I was doing, because when you're buying multi-apartments, there's a lot more legislation to it. There's a lot more risk in terms of what can go wrong, right? So, but we found these like small 12 or 14 apartments, and we just started buying those. And what we would do is we would pre-sell them. So we would sell the rights for them to buy, like a lease option.
Okay, yeah.
To investors, put 20, 30 grand in, which gave us the money to put the deposit down to buy the whole building, right? That was the strategy that was so sexy then.
Okay, I get it. So it's kind of a lease and option agreement, but it's not exactly a lease option agreement, right?
Yeah.
Because a lease option would be where you offer the owner to pay his mortgage, pay his expenses, and through the meantime, collect the rent. Probably make, some profit off of that. And afterwards, he have the option to buy the property. Is that fund, because it said an investment fund at the back of the book, is that fund public or is it private?
No, that was a private fund. That was a private. I wouldn't make it public unless I couldn't make it. Well, the problem was here's the deal. I was really knowing what we're doing. The problem was I was with a partner, my family, who was incompetent and greedy and was criminal. So what I was doing right, but he was compromising what I was doing. So I had to buy my way out of that, because that was slowing me down to the extent where he bought the property that I didn't know about, which was too risky because he was greedy, right? So one of the things I will tell in the update to the book, I think I put it in the book anyway, but if you're going to do a partnership with someone, you have to protect the motherfucking shit out of yourself and make sure all of your protection is fully protected. So before, I was using one company to buy several properties, but now I would only use one company to buy one property. I would protect it and then set up another company legally to do that. Because if anything affects that property, it affects all the other properties. So I learned and paid the biggest price for that mistake.
Okay, so that was the cousin, right?
Yes.
Who then had to sue and to lose 20 million, or was it something like that?
Oh, more, because I lost I probably lost 60 million pounds in revenue because of that legal case that I couldn't sell anymore because it was in litigation, you see.
I understand. So the potential income didn't come to you, so the loss is much, much bigger.
But the lesson was priceless because I would never, ever make that mistake again. No matter what anyone said to me in my family or close friends, Marco, do a partnership with me. No, no fucking way would I ever do that again. Does that make sense? Or I would only do a partnership when I was in control, like 51%, would never do 50-50 ever. That is a massive key to success long-term, right?
So your words currently, people should actually think about this. Your words are worth over 60 million pounds at the
Pretty
moment.
much, yeah.
And about how many years lost in just litigation and
6 years.
wow. Now the words are really priceless, as you're saying.
6 years. And, you know, I'm not a bullshitter. I'm very honest.
Yeah.
I wrote that book in 2016, then that happened. And as I said, I'm going to update the book because the principles of the book are exactly the same. It's just I made one mistake.
Sure. Real estate principles, they have stayed probably the same over the past 200 years or more. I mean, they don't change at all. Actually, there might be some updates, but the principles overall are
Unless they change the underlying economic system, it will never change.
Absolutely. Yeah. Did you get to over 200 properties or did you get to how many properties did you acquire with this investment fund?
I think we got to about just over 202 properties because they were multiple apartment blocks.
Okay, so that was before breaking down the company?
Yeah.
And nowadays?
Now, my friend, I own 10 properties.
So you currently own 10 properties through 10 different companies?
No, individually owned. So I've not invested in property since then, but I am investing next year, the year after that, and the year after that.
I understand. You're waiting for the cycle to come to the bottom.
Correct. Yes.
Are you sure that it's going to come to the bottom?
Oh yeah, it's already happening. But my disclaimer is I do not give financial advice, right?
I totally understand, Marco. Of course, very smart of yours. Very smart of yours, of course. However, what we are preaching to our audience is always the following: definitely follow the economic cycles that Marco Robinson describes in his book. However, if you are going to wait to buy property only after 15 years pass, and you get some new income, some new money, and it has lost its value due to inflation, you have to be a vampire to make some money in real estate because you need to live over 600 years. So what you're saying right now might lead people to think that they should only invest at the bottom of the market. Do you think that this is the case?
No, I don't think that's the case because I've invested all the way through the cycle because I find properties that are below the market value.
Absolutely.
Right? It's in my book because you're going to find buyers that are desperate to sell. There's something wrong with the property that they can't fix because they don't have the money. So they're going to sell cheap. So all the way through the cycle, you're going to find bargains.
Okay, Marco, now that's a very key thing to mention because most people think that they should only buy through a crisis. Other people think that through a crisis, they should just keep cash.
The other thing is you can actually change the usage of a property. You can have you can have an office block and turn it into residential apartments that completely changes the value. So that's another strategy, isn't it?
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah. It sure is. And so you decided that you won't invest in multifamily right now, or are you going to still invest in multifamily, if it makes sense?
Yeah, if it makes sense. I mean, whatever makes sense, really.
Okay, so I'm asking this question because, single family, it's very good. It's very profitable. However, as I'm sure you are aware, multifamily offers NOI, the net operating income. And after you increase this, you ultimately increase the price of the
my principle is always invest in first-time buyer homes, affordable housing, because you'll always have a buyer and you'll always have a tenant. If you go too far expensive, it's a high risk, especially in times of economic crisis, because people lose their companies, they lose their income, and you won't have a tenant anymore.
I totally agree with you. Yeah, what we do is buy a multifamily, however, affordable apartment. And if they're big apartments, we just separate them into little apartments because we have read the book, Big Money in Small Apartments. I don't know if you have read this book. It's a genius one as well. Yeah. And so, right now, after the economic crash, are you going to focus more on multifamily or single family?
Probably single family again. Probably single family again to start with. Yeah, it depends what the market's like, what's going.
Absolutely, of course, many factors that would determine this decision. However, would you do this through an investment fund or would you do this individually?
I would go to a certain point where I can leverage, and then I'd start inviting investors into a fund.
Okay, and it's going to be private again.
Yeah.
Okay, what makes you not want to make it public?
Compliance in terms of the red tape makes it very prohibitive, especially in England. It takes so much time, and you lose the opportunity. Now, I'm not against doing it as a regulated fund, but it takes years to do that, and sometimes it's not possible to do that, especially if you want to raise money fast and you want to go, you want to reach the right people. If you have a reputation, which I do, even though I lost, I repaired it. People would rather invest with someone like that rather than a regulated fund, because even regulated funds can lose money. I've seen so many go bankrupt. You've got to have a title. You've got to have a deed. That's why lease options are better, because you've got a deed, a right to use, a protection there. You've got to have protection and security wherever you go.
Okay, have you done original lease option agreements with anyone?
Yeah, I've done that.
Could you tell us a story of that?
Well, I've done quite a few of those, and I found it a long process and finding the people more laborious. So I decided to make multi-apartment blocks, individual units on lease options instead, and give them a portion of the rent, and they could actually buy it after a certain number of years. That was far more successful, because I built a database of people that wanted affordable lease options rather than people that were spending millions, And the secret is to build a database, is to build a list of people that you can sell to that want to invest with you. And to do that, you have to create your own kind of real estate company or passion about real estate, so you can start a kind of movement for yourself and other people,
Okay, I believe you have bought these apartment buildings in a bad condition, of course, because this way it's more value to you.
Not all in bad condition, not all of them. Some of them we converted it from an office to a private apartment, so that was far quicker and far more profit.
You decided to do a lease option agreement with let's go with an investor after you bought the building or before that? I mean, did you?
No, we'd have to put a deposit down on the building. We wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that.
Okay, that's smart. Now, I was thinking, did you do the job and then offer this to an investor, or did you firstly get the capital and then do it? So
we firstly secured the purchase of the property, that we were the first right to purchase it,
okay,
and the lending, right? Then we would do the lease option part of it.
Okay, before doing the renovation, the separation, and the conversion of the offices. Okay, yeah, very smart. Nowadays, what would sound like a good deal to you? I mean, are you looking at ROI, cash on cash return, or are you looking at the ARV after repair value?
First of all, I'm back to being interested in cash flow.
Cash flow, okay.
So cash flow protects your income. You can retire. You don't have to work. That's the ultimate protection, is cash flow. Because if anything happens to you, you've got money coming in. If you buy capital appreciation and something happens to you, that's the highest risk, because you have to maintain the mortgage. You can't afford it because you're out of a job. You've got no income, right? So always cash flow, always.
And on top of that, cash flow actually secures you with a good credit score, because after the bank sees, wow, this company, they have a good cash flow. Therefore, we're going to lend them some money.
That's number one. It's oxygen. That's number one.
Absolutely, Marco. Nowadays, our company focuses on increasing the cash flow, because through the years, we have bought many properties below market value. We have created some huge equity, high appreciation through renovations, sweat equity. However, this has created a bad position in terms of cash flow. So nowadays, we're fixing this. We are in a position to fix it, which is pretty good. However, I totally agree with you that cash flow is king. Actually, Grant Cardone says that, right?
Absolutely.
That was Marco Robinson, the guy himself. I'm very happy that you took some time for us, Marco, and I wish you a blessed evening. It was so nice speaking to you.
You too, buddy. All the best. Take care.
Well, guys, it's Pavel Kolev here, ending the Real Estate Investing Podcast with Sir Marco Robinson. It was an amazing podcast, in my opinion. We didn't talk about real estate investing as much as I wish we had. However, we talked about his amazing life story that was so interesting that I couldn't interrupt him at all. And I don't like to interrupt our guests at all anyway, because they are so interesting characters, so interesting stories behind them, that it would be a shame. And especially Sir Marco Robinson's story. He has gone through so many challenges, setbacks, and tribulations. He has shown us that in hindsight, everything should be taken as a lesson. The guy lost 60 million pounds, and he says that it was a great lesson, and he laughs about it. I can't even believe it. And although we didn't speak of real estate investing as much as I wanted to, we definitely went through this amazing life story. We talked about sales, and sales is something so interconnected to everything that we do in life, everything that we do in our career, in our business, in entrepreneurship overall. And sales is everything, guys. So he shared so many invaluable things about sales that you just couldn't complain. Although it was all about real estate investing, we just can't complain because it was very valuable to hear all about his sales journey and all of his sales tips. And after all, we did get into real estate investing, although, as I said, not as much as I wanted to, but we heard a lot of interesting things from the man himself, the man who wrote the book, The Financial Freedom Guarantee, that talks about these economic cycles, about real estate investing, about leverage, and it's so well written that you can just read it through day and night and not get tired of it. So if you haven't already, I definitely recommend to read the book, The Financial Freedom Guarantee, because it's definitely going to change your life. Okay, guys, I'm going to end the podcast here because actually Marco Robinson is not with us anymore, unfortunately, but we're going to definitely make a part 2. I secured it, so everything is fine. We're going to go deeper into the real estate investing rabbit hole. However, for today, I really hope that this podcast was valuable to you, and if this is the case, please make sure you leave a thumbs up down below and also leave some comments if you have any questions to ask or any recommendations, or you just want to say Bolgar Capital are the best, because that's a fact, and we're going to continue bringing in new amazing people who will be speaking about self-improvement, about business, entrepreneurship, real estate investing. If you want stock market investing, actually we might not do that because we're not stock market fans. But anyways, guys, I really hope you like this podcast. Wish you all the best. And it is this for today from the Bolgar Capital Real Estate Investing Podcast.